and good afternoon. It is a good morning for our overseas guest here today. My name is Tracy Cook, and this is the podcast series Victim to Victory. Now, this series gives a voice to those that have overcome obstacles in all forms that dare greatly to share their real stories. Amazing humans like our guest that we have today that have seen hope and risen above those adversities to become victorious, that go on to support and inspire others to do the same. And today we are giving a voice to Edie De Vilbiss, and she is all the way in Canada or US. And
US.
US. I see mountains in the background there, Edie, and I'm thinking straight away Canada for some reason. But I'm very grateful to have Edie on here. Now, let me tell you a little bit about her because I want you to really connect with her story. Her story is really powerful, and I think you're going to get so much value out of Edie's inspirational story. And she's very passionate about sharing her discoveries with you. And she was working in 911 dispatch for 14 years. Wow. And it left her, in her own words, cranky, overweight, and cynical. And she suffered compassion fatigue, health problems, and spiritually was kind of a little bit malaise as well. So over 20 years, she intentionally renewed her life, and along the way she earned an MS and an MDiv, as served as an addictions counsellor and chaplain before retiring in 2020. Wow. And she's now enjoying a peaceful and a joyful life that she's living now. And it's her delight, and I'll let her tell her story in her own way, but I know it's very much Edie's delight to help others in their journey. And I would really like to welcome you, Edie, to the Victim to Victory podcast series. How are you?
I am so wonderful. Tracy, thank you so much for giving me a voice and giving others their voice, because the work that you do is so powerful and so important. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Now, I know our audience will get so much value out of you today, Edie, because I'm just even imagining the amount of stories you could tell, even just from being a 911 dispatcher. But who is Edie? Where does your story start? And take us on that journey with you.
Okay. When I was in 911, and I understand in Australia is 000, is that correct?
000
Yes.
here in Australia.
000, yes. When I was in 911, one of the things I always wondered about, I wondered what it was like to be that person that nobody wanted to work with. You know, the one where when they walk in the room, everybody gets quiet and nobody has anything to say. We all got very busy. And one day I found out for myself. I walked into the center and there were 3 other colleagues working. And when I said hi there, nobody spoke to me. They all got very, very busy. And the room actually got colder. I got through the shift, but it was a really hard day. And really made me stop and think. And I wondered, my first reaction was, they're so rude. But then I thought about it, and I had been ugly to them the day before. Not like me. A few days later, I had a run-in with 2 of my 3 children, and I walked away feeling kind of the same way. My stomach was uncomfortable. It just didn't feel right. And a few days after that, I had a coffee date with a good friend of mine who was not in 911. We'd been friends for a long time. And I told her the 2 stories, and she's like, you know, Edie, what do these 2 have in common? I said, well, all the people in my life are jerks. She said, I don't think so. And I said, oh, well, maybe it's me. Maybe they have me in common. And she said, Edie, I've been worried about you. You seem distant. You're hard to get a hold of. And, you know, you didn't call me back a couple times in the last few weeks, and that's not like you. I think you need to get some help. Well, she's a really good friend. You know, good friends can tell you the truth. And sometimes you actually listen to them. It took me weeks, maybe months, to pick up the phone and call to see about finding a counselor. But I was really not living my own values. I was not being kind to my neighbors. I was sharp and cranky and having trouble sleeping and just struggling. And so I eventually left 911 and went to school to become a counselor because I saw the value in it. And I've always been a listener. And so I thought that was something I could do and not feel so burdened by the things that I was hearing. And in counseling, as a professional counselor, I specialized in addictions. And so I heard people's stories. And eventually I got to the same place again, where I was short-tempered and struggling. Well, the key to keeping your mental health and keeping your stability is in having high quality self-care habits. And counselors would tell me this, and I didn't know how to do that. I don't know how to change my lifestyle. I know what to do, right? Right? We know. We all know.
We
Yeah.
know what to do, but it's so hard for us to put our own oxygen mask on first, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's very hard. And I didn't know how. So I would find a diet and go on a diet for, I don't know, 2 days a week. And, you know, didn't instantly drop the extra weight. So probably over 14, let's see, there's 14 years in dispatch and probably another 10 years. So maybe 24 years. I was gaining 5 to 7 pounds a year. Very slow. 5 to 7 pounds a year over 24 years is a significant amount of weight. And it showed, not just the way I looked, but in my physical well-being. And other self-care habits were not powerful. So I left being a counselor and went to seminary to become a pastor, and found myself in the same place again as a pastor. I was a chaplain at a children's home. And so over these years, all these years, I'm getting some counseling, I'm getting help, I'm reading things, I'm trying to do what I can. I would start an exercise program and exercise for 3 weeks. I would eat well for a few days at a time, and always trying. And then I finally got to a place where I was ready and found the keys to habit formation. So there's books written on it. This is not something I created, how to start a habit, although I have added to it. You start small, you start now, and you start with one. So the keys to habit formation are, you have to remind yourself, because when we're starting a new habit, our brain wants us to stay the same, because staying the same is safe. We want to be safe. Our brain, our subconscious, or they call it the reptile brain, wants to keep us safe. And so we got to stay the same. So to start a new habit, you've got to remind yourself everywhere, because it's really easy to forget that you're going to do this thing. But you got to start really small. And so the recommendation is 5 minutes or fewer. It has to be so small that you can't, it's easy to do. course, if it's easy to do, it's also easy not to do, which is why you got to remind yourself. And then consistency is more important than quantity or quality when you're beginning a new habit. So doing the thing every day is really, really important. So it's got to be fun, because you're not going to do it if it's not fun. At one point, I decided that I would have a running program. I forgot I don't like to run. And so I bought new shoes and a new cool running outfit, but didn't run.
Yeah.
Still don't.
It's
But I
funny
do.
how we get sidetracked a little bit, don't we? We get
Yeah.
caught up in the euphoria of what it could be instead of realizing
Yes.
you have to take the first step, right?
Yes, yes. I have a friend who had just run her first marathon. I was like, oh, I could do that. Well, not if I won't run. So you got to make it something that's pleasurable, something that's really fun. And you got to keep track. And that's where I found for me was the key, and for the people that I've worked with seems to be the key, is keeping track. So instead of just keeping track on your own, like you can make an X mark on the calendar every day, or put stars or something like that. Connect with someone else and report to them, yes or no. But the key is the reporting, not the yes or no. And so what I teach people is you report to your accountability partner, either yes or no, I did it or I didn't. And then they respond. If you say, yes, I did it, they celebrate with you. And if you say, no, I didn't, they say, I see you trying. We don't need other people to tell us how to do it. We don't need other people to hold us accountable, to boss us around. We don't need anybody else watching our plate. We need people to see us, to witness us, and to celebrate. Because honestly, Tracy, when was the last time somebody put a picture that you drew on their refrigerator? I haven't had that happen since I was probably 3. Because I'm from a really large family and there wasn't room on the fridge. So,
but it's so true. I mean, people just want to be seen and recognized and get on with it, don't they?
Yeah. We got to see each other. And what I've experienced with the people that I've worked with is that the connection goes beyond that superficial connection. So we had one team who that we would report to each other over text, send an emoji, check mark if they did what they said they were going to do. But if they didn't do it, they would send that emoji that looks like perhaps a pile of manure.
the poop emoji.
Yes.
Oh, dear me.
And so just made it fun. But the connection that builds from that, from being accepted and seen, is so powerful. And so through this habit formation and being powerful with my choices, I've dropped 85 pounds.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
Well done.
It's a third grader. It took over 2 years.
Yeah.
Oh, closer to 3. So yeah, but it's consistent daily habits. And so the work that I do is with 911 community. And so I help them set up teams and help them establish that ethic of giving each other acceptance, being a witness to how hard they're trying, and support. One of the things that happens in emergency communications is the work is so hard to stay focused, to stay with what's going on. Because we dispatch in our home communities. And so sometimes we are sending emergency responders to someone we know. Or sometimes things happen where we feel vulnerable. For one of the things that happened that really hurt me when I was dispatching was my daughter had gotten a bicycle for her 12th birthday. And within a week, I dispatched a call for a child who'd been hit on a bicycle.
Oh, no.
And it felt very vulnerable. Now, the child was okay. But so many times in communications, we don't find out because we're on to the next call. We don't know whether that child is okay. We don't know what happened. Did the baby not breathing make it? You know, and so that's one of the many stressors that we face. And so what happens is when people get under stress, they start blaming each other. And I recognize that in myself, because when I started having problems with my coworkers, I was blaming them. They're just jerks. And that's normal. That's what people do. We have to be conscious and intentional to say, that's not who I am. That's not how I choose to show up in my workplace. That's not what I want for my life. And being the person who brings their best selves to our lives is what it's all about. These things are simple. We can do this. Most people won't. Exceptional people choose well for themselves. Exceptional people say, yes, I not only can, I will, and I do.
I love that.
It is. We just need to all choose to be exceptional, and we elevate the people around us and then give them permission to choose to be exceptional. Because when you see it being done, it becomes more doable.
The compound effect is just massive, isn't it? You know?
Yes.
When you do something on a daily, consistent basis, and the compound effect, just little changes where, like you said in your own words, you don't recognize the changes that start with the one glass of water, you know, the one escalator where you now take the stairs, the one, you know, extra piece of fruit, those little changes and the compound effect of that. And then you look back 2 years later and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, how did I get here? This is fabulous.
Yeah. And so, that's the power of what you do is you give other people permission to choose excellence. Now, the first habit that I teach is 5 minutes of intentional silence. And I teach that for a number of reasons. Number one, meditation is proven time and time again to be beneficial to us, body, mind, and spirit. I mean, there's not a part of our lives that it doesn't help. But when I learned about meditation, it was from somebody who meditates 2 hours a day. That just seemed impossible
to meditate.
Right. I was working 911 and had 3 children at home. Yeah, no, that wasn't going to happen. But what I discovered along the way, and really the silence was my first habit that gave me permission to be able to do all the other things that has changed me so much. So 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes or fewer a day of sitting still and being quiet. It's not really meditation. Meditation has more intentionality to it, but this is a first step. And so to take that 5 minutes and just be still and listen to yourself breathe, it changes our lives. It makes so much difference. And it's such a small change. You don't need any special equipment. My thing was always, I would go out and buy stuff, you know, to get ready and then not do it.
And how many people can relate to that, Edie? So many people, you know, They dance around everything instead of actually doing the thing they're meant to do, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
We dance
Oh
around
yeah.
it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I have several lifetime memberships to gyms that no longer exist. So
I can definitely put my hand up
yeah.
for that one as well.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, but you don't need special equipment. You don't need any extra training, right? It's not easy, especially in our virtual world where we have all this electronic noise coming at us all the time. It's very challenging to put your phone away, to leave your computer off, and to sit still and listen to yourself. But it makes so much difference. I've had dispatchers say, I'm now doing this 4 times a day, 5 minutes at a time, because it keeps me calmer. It keeps me able to be kind. Because it's not just our coworkers we need to be kind to, it's the public, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever had to call emergency services, but I think it's devastating when we get somebody who's rude to us.
Oh, definitely.
And
I used to work in disability services for the Australian government, and quite often I'd have to call kind of a welfare check on somebody who I had on the end of the phone, which would include emergency services. So I very much can relate to what you're saying here. And
yeah.
when you're in such a high pressure environment where every second and minute does really count. And I've seen burnout with people I've worked with the, I think they call it compassion fatigue, where you just kind of, oh, that's really cold, but it's not. You just get so used to being in that high pressure situation, you're not in connection with your own emotions anymore. It's kind of like you're speaking and working outside of your body. And that's where those tips that you're actually teaching people to take that 5 minutes to be consciously aware and to be within themselves, to have a break. I think that's just so important.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Compassion fatigue is devastating. It's very similar to PTSD in symptoms. And it's not a mental illness. PTSD is not a mental illness. It is a cluster of symptoms that arises from dealing with trauma. Trauma is just something has happened in your life that changes what you believe your future could be in an instant. Well, I didn't have one of those. I had plenty of calls that affected me, but I didn't have one of those, like an officer involved shooting. Those are really hard on dispatchers. And there are other things, like sometimes people are suicidal and they will get the dispatcher on the phone and then shoot themselves while their dispatcher is there. And that is absolutely devastating for a dispatcher. We're not there to be a witness to someone's self-destruction. We're there to help save their lives. And we believe that hearing them and being that witness and being there for them can save their lives. And it does save lives. It's just not 100%. So those calls that are so devastating, that's PTSD. But what I had was a buildup of calls over the 14 years where there's not distinct calls that I remember. There are a few, like the one with the bicycle. But it was just overwhelming, and I got very callous and cynical, which really surprised. Yeah, it really surprised me when I went to seminary, because I was pretty not impressed with our deity for a long time, because I blamed our creator for the human condition. So,
oh, definitely. And so many people would relate to that as well, because it's just that build up that sometimes just gets out of hand. It just is bigger than what we actually want it to be, and it just consumes us so entirety that we can't see a way out. until
Yeah.
something major happens, and we take a look in the mirror and a look within, and then we go, wow, how did it get to this?
How did I get so far away from who I am? How did I get so far away from myself? I've been an optimistic, kind person since I was a little girl, and that's not who I had become. I was so far away from my own sense of self. I was not acting with integrity. I was rude and unaccepting and angry. And that's just not how I wanted to be in my world. And it took me a long time to be able to shift that. And my silent time, my meditation time is what started me around the corner.
And
You
how
talked about,
brave of you, how brave of you to actually be able to say, I was this, this, and this. You know, that's so brave of you, Edie, because it's very hard for us to publicly declare that, let alone declare it to ourselves and acknowledge that. Do you think, like through your counseling work, that's the first part of healing, to acknowledge what wasn't going right and why you were disconnected from the person you really were? With counseling, do you think that's the first step?
I think that might be part of the first step. The very first step is just saying, I need help.
Yeah.
And I'm worth getting help. You know, our lives are worth it. And so I think that's the very first step. But choosing to finding somebody that you can be vulnerable with, and choosing to be vulnerable is a powerful step. I think probably one of the most powerful things, though, that I experienced through counseling was the ability to forgive. You know, I was so angry with so many different people and so many different situations in my life. Being able to forgive other people for being just as human and frail and broken as I was. That was a hard thing. And then I had to forgive myself for being human and frail and broken. And then I had to forgive our Creator for the same thing, for my humanness, and for whatever I was holding God accountable for.
And being a chaplain, did you see a reconnection with Creator?
Oh yeah, I reconnected with Creator before I went to seminary. You can't get through seminary unless you're called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a journey within itself as well.
Oh yeah. Oh
that's
yeah.
a huge journey.
And it started with the silence. It started with me saying, I need to connect to something, but I don't know what to connect to. I don't know. And so I looked into the world religions, and I just couldn't seem to connect with anything. And so somebody told me to try it. I have had that gift that I do listen to people. I do listen. Sometimes I don't do what they advise, but I listen.
That's good.
But sometimes I'll try it.
Oh, that's fabulous. So take us up to where you are now and the people you're helping now, because I know that you retired in 2020. So who are you helping, and how are you helping now?
So I retired July 1st. And so I've been steadily working since then. And I have had the privilege of walking with some of the 911 operators in establishing this tiny, tiny little habit and working on it. And I have a program to work with groups of like a communication center to help them establish programs to help people recognize the hazards of compassion fatigue, recognize the symptoms, do self-evaluation, establish a habit, and hopefully, and it's proven true, it helps build better relationships in the communication center. People, it's a high turnover position, and I don't think it has to be. One of the strongest reasons that it is a high turnover position is because interpersonal relationships get fractured, and it gets ugly. People will form cliques and freeze other people out. And I've been on both sides of that coin. So I know how connected you feel when you are with a colleague and you align against someone else. But I also know what it's like to be that someone else. And it's destructive. It's not just destructive to the person who's frozen out. It is destructive to the people who align against their colleague, because they're vulnerable to it too. And so it increases our mistrust of each other. If we're doing that to someone else, then it's easy to believe that they would do that to us.
Oh, 100%, definitely. And I'm such a firm believer in culture and community, because without culture and community in any industry, in any workplace, in any relationship, if you don't have the culture and community, I just think that they can't connect on a level where, especially in such a high stress environment like a call center, that they can rely on that other person to pick them up if they fall. And that's where you need it the most. And it doesn't have to be a high turnover if somebody else has got your back.
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the things that happens is when somebody does let you down in the comm center, because people make mistakes, it turns out we're human. And so someone else's mistake can make us look bad. And so that's where the resentment starts. That's when we start freezing people out. When
do you think
we
it's
feel
lack of ownership as well? Sometimes certain personalities just don't like to take ownership, even if they know they're in the wrong.
Oh yeah. That's very human.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Taking ownership of our own lives is a learned skill. And some people learn it earlier than others, but it is not something I think that I don't know about in Australia, but here in the US, it's not necessarily expected. We play the blame game a lot. It's part of our culture.
I think Aussies kind of go, yeah, that was me. Yeah, stuffed up. Yeah, I done that. I think majority of Australia would kind of go, yeah, I really screwed that up, and I'm sorry, but you know. But you know, we still there's still a lot of personalities that don't like to take that ownership. And I just think, you know, just that 5-minute break a couple of times a day. And I'm definitely going to adopt that idea, because I absolutely love it, because I just think it's so adaptable to any environment and to any person. Well, it's like we're giving ourselves a time out, really, aren't we?
Yeah. Yes. A gift of a timeout instead of a punishment.
Yeah. And what results have you seen from that? What kind of feedback have you received? I know you touched on it before in our conversation, but I'm just absolutely fascinated, you know, the feedback that you're getting from people doing that.
Yeah. Mostly it's, I'm better able to stay focused and stay calm. I'm better able to be present in my life because I have spent this time. It is very, very refreshing to just spend time in our own company, to just love ourselves enough to want to hang out.
It's a great habit.
Yeah.
And how long does it take to form a habit, Edie?
There's research on that, and it depends. So some habits you form immediately, right? Because I have this amazing habit where I don't touch stoves because I learned it when I was little, right?
Yeah.
There are habits that we learn immediately. One of the habits that I started that helped me on my weight management journey was I started drinking 3 large glasses of water as soon as I wake up in the morning. And after I tried that for a few days, I never stopped. It was not a hard habit for me to establish because it feels really good. Now, it was a hard habit for me to remember to do to begin with. But once I did it I think it was about 3 or 4 days in a row, that I was like, oh no, I'm never going to stop this. And I still do it. It's probably been 4 years, maybe 5. Anyway, time goes so fast.
Mm.
But other habits are harder to start. So it depends on how much you want the habit and how consistent you are. When I was coming up, it was 21 days to start a new habit. Well, it's 21 days where you don't skip a day. I never did that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if 21 days works. Well, with the water, it did. Now there's research that says it's 66 days. And then there's other research that says, no, it really depends on the habit. And so I think if you focus on the 21 days where you don't stop, it'll end up being 66 days.
Mm. Mm. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
And you're just helping so many people in the community, and they're benefiting from all of those years and all of those experiences that you've had through the 911 and through all of the other adventures that you've actually been on in your personal journey and your growth. And it's so refreshing to see somebody take ownership of where they were and to go on and use that powerfully to actually help other people who are more than not going through the same thing. And that those lessons that you've learned and you've adapted, the 5 minutes that they're using, that they're getting all of these benefits out of, that can only increase the culture and community of their workplace and potentially save more lives as well.
Absolutely. It saved their lives as well.
Definitely.
But the key, the little tidbit that makes the biggest difference is that accountability, having a partner and checking in with them every day. That consistency with accountability is huge. Keeping track is the biggest thing. Consistency is more important than quality or quantity. Consistency. You gotta connect with somebody else, and you gotta be willing to be vulnerable enough to own it. I did it or I didn't, and they have to be mature enough to say, whatever you do is perfectly fine with me. Who you are is fine with me. And that's not hard to do. It's not.
Oh, that's so great. Your journey has been absolutely amazing, and you're helping so many people, Edie. What kind of message would you like to leave our audience on today?
Your life is worth the trouble. You're worth the trouble of choosing well for yourself. And it's all habit. It's all habit.
I'm so intrigued. I think we might have to do a part 2 as well, because I'm intrigued to hear more about all of these kind of habits that we can implement to help us in our everyday life to overcome all sorts of obstacles. So we may have a part 2 if that's okay with you as well, Edie.
That would be wonderful, because I can talk about mental health habits, because that's huge too. How we just choose to think about ourselves.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for you today for giving us the insights of your personal journey, how you're helping others, and with some practical tips that our audience can leave with today and start implementing straight away into their everyday life so they can change their lives and improve their relationships and their workplace relationships through culture and community as well. So those tips are just going to be so valuable for so many people. I so appreciate you. Thank you so much today for being brave to share your story, for taking ownership and leading the way through, just holding up that light and leading the way. The world definitely needs more people like that. And you are one of the thought leaders leading the way there. And you can find the Victim to Victory podcast series on YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And if you get value from today, please subscribe, share, and comment. And let me leave you with a message of step into your story, figure out who you are, and do it on purpose. Thank you very much, Edie, and we'll share your links where people can actually connect with you as well.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I appreciate you.
Thank you.